This is one of the principal birthplaces of liberal religion in America, the Universalist Heritage Center in Winchester, New Hampshire. Universalist congregations began forming in New England in the late 1770s. By 1794, they extended from Long Island Sound to central Vermont and New Hampshire, and from the Atlantic to Lake Champlain. The majority were in the hill country of central Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, and southern Vermont. Winchester, New Hampshire, is at the center of this region.
It was in the meeting house here that Universalists gathered in 1803 to draft the Declaration of Faith that became known as the Winchester Profession. This served Universalists for almost a century. It was understood to be included in later declarations of faith and was never repealed. It is the great-great-grandparent of the 7 principles of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The building that today houses the Universalist Heritage Center was built with donations from Universalists across the country to commemorate the Winchester Profession after the original meeting house was lost to fire.
Though Universalists would adopt other, more modern-sounding declarations of faith in later years, the Winchester Profession remains a good introduction to their unique point of view. It begins, "We believe that the Holy Scriptures of the Old and New Testaments contain a revelation of the character of God and of the duty, interest, and final destination of mankind." Within this endorsement of the Bible, typical of the time, we find 2 crucial words signaling that Universalism was something new. One of these words is the smallest one, A. We believe that the Holy Scriptures of the Old and New Testaments contain a revelation, not the unique revelation, but a revelation, one revelation among many. The Jewish and Christian religious traditions weren't the only sources for early Universalists. Others were potentially of value as well.
This openness to insights from other religions led some Universalists in the 20th century to symbolize Universalism by an off-center cross inside a simple, unbroken circle. The circle represents a single, unified, and all-embracing humanity, and the cross as only one, a Christian, expression of it, leaving room for other religious points of view. The other crucial word is inconspicuous too, contain. The Holy Scriptures contain a revelation. The Bible itself is not a revelation, it contains a revelation. Some parts of the Bible are religiously important, but other parts are not. How can these parts be distinguished? By people using their hearts and minds. In the final analysis, each person is his or her own religious authority. The Winchester Profession continues, "We believe that there is one God whose nature is love." Universalists adopted the New Testament words, "God is love," from the first letter of John, as their key theological concept.
In their homes, they sewed it into samplers that were hung in the parlor. In their churches, they painted it on pulpits and carved it into chancel tables. These 3 simple and powerful words are widely used today. This loving God, Universalists believed, would somehow find a way to save all people, the whole family of humankind. Universalists believed that everyone would eventually be welcomed in heaven. This belief, which theologians call universal salvation, is what gave Universalists their name. They believed God's love was universal, embracing everyone.
Many were scandalized by this. They asked, without the threat of eternal hellfire, why should people be good? In several states, Universalists were barred from serving on juries or testifying as witnesses. It was presumed that a Universalist would have no motive to be honest.
Multitudes who embrace these doctrines embrace them because they are so congenial with the debased and perverted feelings of their corrupted and depraved hearts.
Universalists replied with characteristic originality. People should be good and do good, they said. because God has created human nature so that we find it religiously fulfilling to so conduct our lives. Doing good is how to be happy in this life. Virtue is a natural result of our fundamental humanness.
A story about Hosea Ballou illustrates that attitude. One day a Baptist circuit rider, shocked to learn that Universalists didn't believe in eternal hellfire, said to Hosea Ballou, then a Universalist circuit rider, "Why, if I were a Universalist, I could knock you over the head, steal your wallet and horse, and have nothing to worry about." "If you were a Universalist," replied Ballou, "the thought would never occur to you."
Appended to the Winchester profession was a so-called Liberty Clause, affirming the freedom of Universalist churches to add their own particular beliefs to the denominational profession. In later declarations of faith, Universalists enlarged this Liberty Clause until it eventually affirmed complete freedom of belief for every individual. Today, Universalism is sometimes confused with Unitarianism because in 1961, the two denominations were consolidated into the Unitarian Universalist Association after many decades of parallel development. It's useful to note some historical differences between the two groups. American Universalism as an organized body was founded in 1793 as an association of congregations. The American Unitarian Association was founded in 1825, mostly as a publishing and educational organization for the Unitarians. Universalism was a more populist movement, while Unitarianism was a heresy within the congregational churches that formed the New England establishment.
Universalism developed in the hill country of central New England, an area that was then the frontier. Unitarianism developed in long-established settlements around Boston. Universalists were, by and large, from a less privileged social class than Unitarians. Hosea Ballou, who was the principal Universalist leader for more than 40 years, was born in a log cabin in Richmond, New Hampshire, and had less than 2 years' formal education.
William Ellery Channing, his Unitarian counterpart, was born into an aristocratic family in Newport, Rhode Island, and was educated at Harvard.
Universalism developed among lay people. The classic 1770 story of a New Jersey farmer, Thomas Potter, meeting the Universalist lay preacher from England, John Murray, illustrates the readiness of ordinary people to embrace universal salvation.
American Unitarianism originated in Massachusetts, primarily among Harvard-educated clergy. The selection of Henry Ware Sr. as a Harvard professor of divinity sparked the controversy between the liberal Unitarians and conservative Congregationalists in the early 19th century.
The first Universalists were come-outers, who walked out of their home congregations and started new liberal congregations. This parallels the experience of many Unitarian Universalists today.
The first Unitarians tended to be stay-inners whose congregations were gradually guided by their ministers in a liberal direction.
Universalists had to build their own meeting houses.
Unitarians inherited buildings that had been constructed by the town and were maintained at public expense.
While both religious groups championed the use of reason and individual freedom of belief, their theological viewpoints had different perspectives.